The Wednesday, November 4th meeting of the Bolton Conservation Commission, and pursuant to Governor Baker's March 12th, 2020 order suspending certain provisions of the Open Meeting Law, General Law, Chapter 30A, subsection 18, and the Governor's March 15th, 2020 order imposing strict limitations on the number of people that may gather in one place. This meeting of the Bolton Conservation Commission is being conducted via remote participation. No in-person attendance of members of the public will be permitted, but every effort will be made to ensure the public can adequately access proceedings as provided for in the order. A reminder that persons who would like to view and participate in this meeting while in progress may do so by visiting the agenda on the town website, where you will find information to call in. A record of this meeting shall be posted to continue our regular practice of doing so. And as always, we will start with a roll call. I am Brian Barabee.
I'm Jeff Ryan.
Emily Winter.
William Payne.
Perfect. And we do not have.
And I'm Rebecca Longwell.
All right. Are you ready to start?
Yes, ready when you are.
All right. All right. The Bolton Conservation Commission will now continue a public hearing regarding a notice of intent of applicability under the provisions of Mass General Law, Chapter 131, Section 40, and under the Bolton Wetland Bylaw, Chapter 233, regarding proposed construction of 3 single-family homes, the widening and paving of an existing gravel driveway, all to be located at Century Mill Road, map 3.D, parcel 75.
Ryan, just quickly, before we get into this, I do just want to remind individuals and commission members on the call that we do utilize the raise hand function and we utilize the chat function. You can also put your hand up in your screen if I'm not picking up on any of the other features here. At that time, I will note to the chair, unless he has noticed, that someone would like to comment when that time arises, if the commission wishes to allow for it. And that is when the chair will then allow you to speak and provide public comment. Beyond that, could you please change your name, if not already, to your legal first and last name? When you are given the ability to speak, please state, just like we would in an in-person meeting, state your address, being resident of Bolton, and your name. And furthermore, please stay muted. You can choose to have your camera on or not, but please remain muted until your public hearing item or the public meeting item has come up. We would appreciate that. Okay, Brian, after that.
Appreciate that.
I'll hand it back.
So Century Mill Road. Do we have an update on this, Rebecca?
We do. We do have a DEP file number that's been issued, which I'm sharing currently. You can all see this on your screen, correct?
I can, yes.
Okay. It's not common for DEP to have a comment, let alone a rather lengthy comment, so I'm just going to display it while I read it for those who may be calling in. So the DEP file number that has been issued is 1120693. Issuance of a file number indicates only completeness of submittal, not the approval, as that is the Conservation Commission's authority. And they state to please note the following. It does not appear that isolated land subject to flooding was evaluated as part of the ANRAD issued for this property. No discussion was provided in the previous ANRAD application acknowledging the presence of depressions within the vicinity of the existing shed on lots 2 and 4 that may contain seasonal standing water, hydric soils, and/or wetland vegetation. Since the applicant intends to fill much of the existing volume of these depressions, calculations accounting for seasonal high groundwater, surface runoff minus the volume of any recently deposited fill should be provided confirming that these areas do not qualify as isolated land subject to flooding. The applicant should also evaluate whether filling the depression on lot 4 will elevate seasonal flooding in the remaining portions of the eastern depression and consequently impact adjacent residences, driveways, or yard. So that is the comment from DEP. And again, relative to the plan, it's these areas here, if you can see my cursor. And Brian, I'm not sure if you and Emily wanted to provide an update, and any other members who had been out more recently to a site visit on the property.
We did. I mean, the houses were marked out better. We were better able to determine where they were going, the size of them. It did bring up that question, at least my mind, with those areas subject to flooding that are getting filled in. I still have questions about those. I understand that they're on the plan, but I'm glad the DEP had questions about those as well. Just knowing that parts of those are covered under our bylaws. I think we both had questions. I'll let Emily give her rundown quickly too, about the recreation of floodplain. The whole area they're proposing to excavate just doesn't seem like the right idea to dig all of that out on the other side of the stream there. In other words, it's right where the stream goes in and enters under the road. There's a relatively small pond there. And it looks like this excavation is basically, creating a 2-foot berm at the edge of the pond and then excavating a whole other pond on the back side of it that I just think over time is going to turn into one giant pond and just change the flow of that stream before it goes under the road. I'm not sure if there's a better place for that floodplain restoration, but I think digging out that area does not seem like a smart thing for us to do in this general region. And just initial observations when we were out there.
Thank you. Emily, did you want to provide comment?
Yeah, I will agree with exactly what Brian said. And then one of the other things I noticed is that there are several mature trees that look like they need to be removed for the driveway widening because they were within the limit of work and they're within the buffer. So that was a little concerning to me because I thought maybe this was a year ago, we were told there would be no tree removal. So there were many mature trees that were in the limit of work that I think will need to come out when they widen that driveway. And then in general, I have some concerns, I guess, about the wetland delineation in general. And I think we touched upon this last year when we were talking, that when the initial ANRAD and ORAD were filed, it was not disclosed that the applicant was also the owner of the property or the developer. So I would personally like to see a third party out to delineate the wetlands and any other resource areas.
Thank you. Were any other commission members able to get out on site during the last site visit or would like to comment?
Rebecca, it's Jeff.
Hi, Jeff.
I thought we were out there before when there were like 4 houses on this lot. And we had some scientists go out there to talk about whether it was a vernal pool or what was going on. I thought that happened maybe in the last year or year before.
That
So
was a vernal pool assessment,
so that
not
was
specific to wetland resource areas under the Wetlands Protection Act or bylaw. The two can coexist as one and the same, but they're also at times able to be 2 separate.
Okay. So we didn't really do the buffers, zone lines that are on this thing, but we did do a vernal pond. That was the question that we wanted to answer.
Yep.
Thank you.
Yep. Thanks, Jeff.
But just to be sure, with those areas that are subject to flooding aren't marked on the original ORAD. Is that partially what DEP was referring to as well?
Yes, and I believe they were referring to what was included in that ORAD, which that resource area wasn't considered at that time. Okay. The isolated land subject to flooding, nor the land subject to flooding or inundation by groundwater under our bylaw. Under the ORAD bordering land subject to flooding was considered, and that's clearly defined within that document.
Okay.
Mhm.
Is anybody here representing the applicant this evening?
Yes,
Yes.
I believe Kyle McDonald is present.
Yep, Kyle McDonald, Goddard Consulting. Do you guys want me to just kind of, give a response to some of those concerns that you just brought up?
Please, yeah, please.
Okay, so I'll just kind of go in order with you. With the bordering land subject to flooding kind of restoration area, that I understand the concern with it being located so close to the, down gradient pond. But I just want to kind of clarify the plan with that. We're not going to bring that to below the grade of any of the surrounding land. It's not going to be a pond or like dug out. It's just going to be brought down to the floodplain elevation, which is, the elevation of all of the land surrounding that. So it's just the idea is to bring it down, to the elevation that it was at before, whenever that, fill was brought there. So just to let you know what the game plan is there. And then in regards to the questions about the depressions in the back, we do have our engineer running those calculations that DEP requested. So as soon as we have that information, I will get that to you guys to let you know if they do in fact meet any, criteria for land subject to flooding. I would like to note that in years past that the area has been, looked at relatively thoroughly, especially even in like the springtime, and any water that was held in there was observed to be infiltrated pretty quick. But obviously that's not the determination of land subject to flooding. That's where the calculations will come into play to make the final determination on that. And then I guess the last thing with the concern with the delineation, while we can certainly respect that there may be a question on, some of the wetland lines, we do have an ORAD for this project. So we're, that's what we're basing everything off of. And, that is binding on both me and you when it comes to the, edge of the wetlands.
Does the ORAD show those lands as isolated areas subject to flooding or inundation?
They are not shown as anything on.
I believe according to our bylaw, the ORAD needs to show those in order to be valid, correct? Or
So-
it's an incomplete ORAD without those, at least the filing for what you're trying to do, you're filing under the Wetlands Protection Act and you're filing under our bylaw. And I guess it seems like you have an incomplete filing, an incomplete ORAD under our bylaw. Am I incorrect about that? It doesn't seem to actually fulfill what our bylaw asks it to have. So I'm not sure that it's actually valid under our bylaw.
So it sounds like there are areas that are in question. One thing to note, I believe the commission fully understands about that excavation area coming down to the floodplain level, but I believe what they are concerned with is even at the floodplain level, although we're in a drought currently, as you may recall, last year, we had quite a significant amount of water in a few years before that. So these bouts, I guess, of increased water, precipitation, flooding, it's occurring more frequently. So I believe that is what the commission is looking at, where they're saying you're bringing it down to a level that's not far off from the wetland resource area line that you have delineated on this plan. So the concern would be knowing the history of this property and the hydrology of this property. The concern would be that over time that is now going to become a pond because the characteristics that we've seen already. And the commission can correct me if I'm wrong on that. Additionally, with the land subject to flooding, not only is the commission wanting information, just as Brian was highlighting, under the Wetlands Protection Act and those definitions and performance standards, but you need to also be looking at our local bylaw for the land subject to flooding or inundation by groundwater or surface water. Those are the resource areas, performance standards, and presumptions that you need to overcome as the applicant. And if they can't be overcome, then it can't be permitted.
Okay, that is understood.
Mm-hmm. And
The other question, I had raised my hand quick. The other question I had with that is I knew, we keep hearing that area, has been changed over time. It's been changed. We're just excavating something that's been changed over time. Do you know when that was changed? I mean, there's, I wouldn't say 80-year-old trees on it, but there are some pretty mature trees growing up in that area. It looks fairly well naturalized. Do you know when this was changed? Or changed by, changed by man, the topography there was changed?
We don't really have any information on that. We're just, we can tell that it's, not a natural area that's supposed to, that's not what it looks like.
Could you define not a natural area? I mean, if it's been there for longer than you've been alive and has trees growing on it, every single possible thing growing on it, and again, you have no idea when it was changed, it's been there longer than you were alive, why are you saying it's not natural? I think it's part of the natural landscape now, or at least it has been for the last 40, 50 years.
Yeah, I mean, if that's the opinion of the commission, we would certainly be welcome to opening a discussion about a potential another location or another form of mitigation. It's just when we put the application together, we thought that would be something that would, make you guys happy. We thought it was a good thing for the environment, but it's not set in stone that that's exactly what we want to do. We're open for discussion on that.
Because it kind of sets the berm for the stream as it is now. That whole area is the berm for the stream. I don't see how flattening that out. Hell, I mean, shouldn't that be part of our 25-foot no touch, that we don't allow areas to be excavated on stream berms? Within 5 feet of the stream, we don't allow excavation. I think that's in keeping with our bylaw and the Wetlands Protection Act. Unless there's an extreme reason to cut that into floodplain, I'd say keep it at least 25 feet away from the riverfront. It's just, again, these are initial observations on what I've seen so far, and I'm curious as to what DEP said. I'd really like to see that on NORAD, where those areas are and how they're affected.
And so I think it sounds like, Kyle, amongst the calculations that you're having your engineer prepare, it may be beneficial to also have your engineer assess other areas for that floodplain compensatory area. I'm sorry, I'm stuck in that word. Because it sounds like the commission does not feel that is an adequate location that will not adversely impact resource areas that are already present, even though you are adding to or creating compensatory or trying to create compensatory flood storage. Could you also give me the name of your engineer that is working on this project?
It's Scott Hayes, Foresight Engineering.
Thank you.
Yep.
Any other questions from commission members currently?
Emily, did you have a question? I saw you unmuted.
No, I was just gonna agree. I'm glad Brian brought up the 25-foot no touch. That was kind of another one of my comments. I don't understand why it would be acceptable to excavate out an area adjacent to the wetlands like that, regardless of it being the floodplain compensatory area. I don't know why that's even in play. I mean, aside from the concerns about water levels and erosion between the two, I don't know why that area is in play to begin with.
And point being too, there are plenty of other areas on this site that are adjacent to or within floodplain that could be considered. Okay.
There are members of the public here tonight. Any members of the public to comment or question?
Yes, we have Jim Garrity. I apologize if I'm mispronouncing your name.
Hi, good evening. Yeah, you got it right, Rebecca. Thank you.
Okay.
Just a hopefully quick question. So, is it possible, Rebecca, to go down to lot 2? I think it's one more page down. Oh, sorry, I'm on 21 Century Mill Road.
Thank you. Let me just get
down. Just a quick.
Lot 2 wasn't in there. Lot 4 was in there twice. Oh, okay, it's a new one. Sorry.
Yeah, there. So if I look at the note from the Boy Scout counselor, it says no wells or septics within 100 feet of property line. Did you see that up on top there? It's about,
Yep, yes.
is it right
This
there?
one.
Right.
Yep.
And then if you look down, if I'm reading this correctly, the well is proposed to be 76 feet away.
Let's see.
So if you see the well is the proposed well site, that's, excuse me, that's 76 feet away from the property, the Boy Scouts property line.
Yes, I see where you're talking about there. Yep, you're right.
Okay. And then if you don't need to do this, Rebecca, but if you went to lot 4,
Yep.
the septic system, there's no dimension from the septic system to the Boy Scouts lot line. Now, my calculations are in the 80 to 85 feet, but the dimension is missing.
Yes. You are correct. You're talking about this lot line here.
No, if you go north,
Okay.
so north is, again, you can see the note from the.
Oh, you're correct. Okay, I see the name. Yep.
So that dimension's missing. I have it at 85 feet, but that's just me
Thank you.
trying to rough calculate that out. So those appear to be a problem.
Rebecca, would that require zoning board? Would that require some sort of variance?
I'm not sure. I can certainly speak with our town planner, who's also the staff for the zoning board. But this, when it comes to wells, my mind goes to Board of Health.
Health, yeah. Sorry, yeah.
But as this seems to be a lot specific restriction, it may involve planning as well. But I can certainly reach out to them to see the validity of this. Not that it's not valid, but rather it's not the right word to use. I apologize. The impact that it would have on this project.
Right, and are we bound by it ourselves?
Yeah,
In order
that's
for
what I
us to
mean.
condition it, do we have to take that into effect if that's
Yeah.
existing with the Boy Scouts right now? Which would probably require a significant redraw.
Yeah.
I don't know. I guess depending on where the septics end up, but
Right. Well, either way, if it has to be, revised to meet that standard or that requirement, then yes, we would need a revision of the plans to establish where things are going.
okay.
Mhm.
All right. Any other members of the public here tonight? Comments, questions?
This is Richard
Richard.
Yes.
Davis.
Yep. Similarly, if you zoom back in on that lot that's adjacent to my property,
Mm-hmm.
I think there's a note on there that says the well's 50 feet from my property line.
Probably. Yes, I did see that on lot 4.
And there's a note, no wells or septics within 100 feet of property line. And it's clearly demarcated there as 51 feet.
Okay. Okay. Great.
Another thing too, you can see where he's got wetlands notated on my property, with the little symbol.
Yep.
I just find it extremely odd that if I stand, say, in that existing pathway to the right of where it says lot number 4, if I stand there and look all the way over to Jim's house, so basically I'm gazing over lots 2 and lot 4.
Yep.
That area is so much lower than where I see wetlands indicated on my property. I mean, I don't have water standing in those locations on my land most of the year, but it seems to me that I can see water or ice you know, in the low areas of lots 2 and 4, you know, much of the year. Another thing that is kind of a concern of mine, if I compare this set of drawings to the original set of drawings that were submitted in 2018, those have, you know, many more existing topo lines. The topo lines that we're seeing now are basically the grading that goes around the house.
Yep.
And it seems like if I take the high point to the low point, it looks like it goes down 4 feet. Well, once again, if I stand there and look across from my house or from my property over to Jim's property across these 2 lots, it looks to me like it's much more than a 4-foot depression there.
Sure. So as you may have heard, unless you jumped on late, the commission is looking for a specific analysis of the depressional areas, as DEP, not only did the commission question it under our bylaw and the Wetlands Protection Act, but also DEP has made a note to review these areas. And the applicant's representative this evening has stated that their engineer is also working on that. And actually, now that I say that too, it would be beneficial if you could have a wetland scientist review the area with the engineer if he is not a wetland scientist as well, since that's really what we're looking at along with those calculations under our bylaw. That is, I know under the Wetlands Protection Act, it's really the calculations that direct that definition. So I would say that to answer your question for now, Richard, regarding those depressional areas. Does that make sense?
Yes, I guess it does, you know, for the time being.
Yes.
Rebecca, may I chime in for a second?
Please.
You can ask the chair,
Yeah,
but I'm sure that would be
Kyle,
fine.
please.
Or Brian, yeah, sorry.
Yes.
All right, so obviously this, I'll get you more official information, but I actually just got a text from the engineer with the calculations. He said it does not meet the requirements for the isolated land subject to flooding. I'll get that to you guys in an official format, and then I'll have him and myself will take a look at the bylaw to make sure we're not, you know, missing anything under your bylaw as well.
Yep.
Okay.
And again, I would really focus on the bylaw and the resource areas that are defined in that bylaw and do an analysis specific to that. And yes, of course, you would have to submit the information prior to the next meeting to be considered at the following public meeting, as we've done already.
Any other members of the public for comment or question this evening?
I see no chat function, no questions.
All right. Our next meeting, I believe, is the 17th, correct?
Let me see.
Okay.
Yes,
All right.
Tuesday.
So Kyle, with your permission, is it all right if we continue into that public meeting, give you a chance to get all that information together?
Yep,
Perfect.
absolutely.
All right. In that case, I'd like to make a motion that we continue the public meeting for Century Mill Road, map 3.d, parcel 75 until our next public hearing, Tuesday, November 17th at 7 p.m.
Yep.
Do I hear a second on that?
Second.
All right. All those in favor, starting with Jeff,
Aye.
Emily,
Hi.
Bill,
Aye.
and I'm an I myself.
Wonderful. All right. Thank you, Kyle. I look forward to reading that information.
All right, thanks, guys.
Take care.
Okay.
Thank you.
So we have William present to discuss his proposal, Brian. So whenever you are ready, we do have a
7:25?
representative for that.
The
It's at 15.
What's that?
At the 7:15 item.
Oh, yeah, no, I was 725 Main Street.
Oh, yes. Yep.
All
Sorry.
right, at 7:15, we're good. So the Bolton Conservation Commission will now open a public hearing regarding determination of applicability under the provisions of Mass General Law, Chapter 131, Section 40, and under the Bolton Wetland Bylaw, Chapter 233, regarding 725 Main Street, proposed resurfacing of existing gravel driveway. And do we have somebody representing the applicant this evening? Oh, you're muted, Rebecca.
Did it again. I apologize. William Candido, if I pronounced your last name wrong, I apologize. However, he is the resident at 725 Main Street. And this is the property. Can everyone see my screen?
I can.
Okay. So 725 Main Street, clearly we have riverfront area associated with Great Brook running behind the home. We also have bordering vegetated wetlands, which with the associated 100-foot buffer. And this property is adjacent to the town common. So if you're looking at town common, this is the property to your left. And what William is hoping to do, at least submitted through his application, is here's the home. Obviously the overlay is off by a little bit, so please do not go by that. His driveway is here, if you can see my cursor, and it ends at the back of the home. And that is the area he's looking to resurface. And William, I will let you present from here.
Hi. Hello, can you hear me?
Yep.
Yes.
Yes.
Good evening, Rebecca. Yes, so I'd like to be able and have some problem with water. There was 2 old pine against the house on the driveway side, and we already removed that 2 years ago when it did the septic. Unfortunately, there was some rot against the foundation, which wasn't able to remove everything. And now every time they have a rain, it's a lot of water getting on the basement. So it's again the existing driveway that was designed by Ducharme Drill. I think it's Michael, right, the engineer, 2 years ago. So it's only on a original driveway. I just would like to be able to put an asphalt over to the gravel.
Okay.
Next. Oh yeah, now I can see my video.
Oh, even better.
There you go.
So was it now? Is it gravel now? Why can't I've been out to the house because did we have to redo there was a cesspool. We had to redo the septic, right? Or was this?
Yes.
Okay, so I remember going out there, and was it gravel? Was it just paved before and now it's just kind of breaking down? I can't remember what it was.
Now there was some just a little bit of asphalt on original, but also there was some gravel before. And after they designed a new driveway with the septic and everything, because we need a little return to turn the car over here on the back. That's a very busy street to get in and out all the time, you know. So just a little return on the back and the driveway on the left side of the house, and that's it.
So that's the area I'm just tracing with my cursor.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone can see that. Questions?
And just paving over it, just a regular pavement?
Yes.
Okay.
So I'm gonna hire a company from Lewiston. They're gonna take care about everything. Hire a cop to be on the street, you know, do all the stuff.
Yeah.
And but just pave that and protect for the water in the basement.
And are you doing any excavation with it, or are you top coating?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear.
I said, are you doing any are you planning to carry out any excavation of the old surface material, or is it more of a top coating?
Just the top, just the top. They don't need any big machine. Because when they did the septic, it's pretty much prepared for the paving, no? The drive for the asphalt.
Yeah.
But there was a leak 2 years ago. But now every time they ever have rain, it's all the water on the driveway. It's going to the basement.
And I'm assuming then we would just kind of pitch it towards the town common, kind of pitch it away from the house, basically, just in towards the town common area.
I think, yeah, they're gonna be to the street, right?
Yeah.
Not to the parking. Yeah, for the street.
And Brian, I think that the driveway's on the opposite side that from the town
Yeah,
common.
it
Yeah.
was.
And it's between
Isn't it
two
on the
two
other side of the
houses
house,
there.
Rebecca.
Yes, yep.
In between those two. But my question is are they gonna pitch it so that it drains out into the street?
Yeah.
Well, that would be something that I think DPW would weigh in on, because I believe our local bylaw doesn't allow for, you have to contain your stormwater on site. So that would be a question, but that's out of my jurisdiction and knowledge base, so I'm not sure exactly what potential exemptions they have or how that works.
I agree with that. So I don't know if this certainly seems that from when I go drive by it, it's like pea stone down there now that, you know, in the wintertime it's gonna be hard to plow, and it's gonna be you know, I think a layer of asphalt on there will make life a little easier for the gentleman, but I don't know whether that's something we can comment about, but you know, where the water goes. But we don't want it going into a cellar, that's for sure.
Yeah. I would imagine it would have to pitch towards the backyard, basically.
Yeah.
Slightly to keep it out of both the houses and just kind of channel it towards the backyard and let it infuse back there. I'm just trying to think of it, you know, if it's going to cause any more major runoff than what it's already getting now with just regular infiltration. Do any other commission members have questions offhand, comments? Rebecca, do you have initial thoughts on this?
I don't. I think the ultimate question is, does the commission want a pervious or impervious surface there? But there's a septic between the work that's being proposed, which is within over an existing footprint. So the septic's between that and Great Brook, which is our main concern with the resource area. So that's really what the commission's weighing out.
As far as, I mean, a pervious surface would be nice, but it sounds like there's already a lot of water coming into the basement. So I feel like that would not resolve the current issue. And if I remember correctly, that's a raised septic. So
Yes.
Is it basically bermed before you get to the resource area anyway?
Yes.
So it's likely going to infiltrate behind, you know, at the end of the driveway. I would be concerned about infiltrating through the driveway, and then the water's back in the basement, which is the issue to start with on a personal level. But
that's a good point.
You know, can I just say if we're just talking about what to put on the what kind of asphalt to put down, I think the impervious stuff was going in. How they fix the water going into the basement, and if it drains in the backyard and has nowhere to go up against that septic system, you know, it's going to pool up out there. I don't know the analysis of it, but as far as the stuff they want to put on the driveway, the impervious stuff is much better, I think, than just flat out asphalt. But that's my opinion on that.
Other commission members with thoughts, questions, comments? Rebecca, did I already ask if you have any additional thoughts?
I do not. And I'm not seeing any raised hands or any questions beyond that.
I don't know. That was my next one. Any public people? So I guess not. So I guess I'll poll the commission before we vote, because Jeff, I take your point. Normally we do look for the pervious asphalt, which I could see asking for. But I think Emily has a good point too. Whereas, you know, we know that driveway, it's right between those two houses. If it's infiltrating straight down, it's probably still causing them issues basement wise. So it's probably almost better to let it flow to the backyard and just have it infiltrate there. And I'm also thinking with the size of the driveway, it's not a huge apron we're creating.
Right.
I agree, Brian. It's the question I had, it goes back there because it is a raised, septic system that almost covers the whole backyard back there. So it's going to go there to that dam and then shoot off to the right into the town common and then into the brook.
Yes.
So that's probably what's going to happen. That's probably the way it is. I don't know whether putting an asphalt topping on this really solves the problem with the water getting into the basement. And I think that's what Emily was bringing up too. But those are my comments. So I agree with you about the topping, but on the other hand, it's probably not going to just putting asphalt on there is not going to help the water going into the basement if it goes in the wrong direction. I hope the engineer knows it. Maybe we should ask to see a plan. I don't know whether we need to do that or not, but anyway.
Sure can. Would it be possible, Mr. Candido, the paving company you use, that you're planning to use, would they be able to provide any kind of, I'm not sure if they're used to doing a plan or a quick diagram or just a quick listing of what they're planning to use for materials and how they're planning to pitch the driveway? Would it be possible? I'm not sure if it's just a company that comes in seal coats or if that's something they could provide you with.
Yeah, well, I can ask them. I didn't expect they're going to ask me this question, but I can ask them to see what kind of material they're going to use and all the stuff, Yeah, I can ask them and see what I can do it.
The commission also has the ability to condition if they're comfortable with the asphalt or not. But the concern is where the water is going, which is what the concern should be. The commission's also able to add a couple of conditions relative to that through a determination if they so choose. But I think the questions raised are very valid as well.
Rebecca, with what you're saying, just would it be similar to like a -3 determination with the following ongoing conditions that water infiltration at the site meet a certain standard or something along those lines?
Yep. Or is not directly discharging into the resource area, or whatever the concern may be of the commission. Basically establishing where the direction would need to go for it to be appropriate on site. And that would therefore define whether or not it can be done. So if the asphalt or paving company comes back and says, we have to pitch it so that it does do that, well then Mr. Candido will have to come back and relay that information. We'll discuss it at that time.
Okay. If we were to condition it along those lines, do you have good wording for that? I'm trying to think the best way that I would word that, that the driveway can be paved under the conditions that the pitch of the driveway and the flow of the water does not represent direct discharge into the resource area.
Yep. And I would also include something.
Infiltration.
I would also include something about not cause adverse impacts to resource area, which is overall what our bylaw requires, but that also covers the 100-foot buffer, which is also the adjacent upland resource area under our bylaw.
Okay. Which
is basically the entirety of the yard, but what it says is it can't cause an adverse impact.
Okay. How do other commission members feel about discussing, just in hearing us talk about that, to be able to condition it tonight? Well, condition it, to approve it tonight, but under those conditions? You comfortable or?
Fine with Jeff.
Okay.
Bill?
Yeah, it's fine with me.
Okay.
All right.
I just saw you on mute, that's why.
I didn't want to hear what Bill had to say anyways. All right. In that case, I'm going to make a motion that we close the public hearing for 725 Main Street.
Okay.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All right. All those in favor, starting with Jeff Bryant,
Aye.
Emily Winter,
Aye.
William Payne,
Aye.
and I'm an aye as well, Rebecca.
Okay.
I'd like to make a motion that we have a -3 determination for 725 Main Street with the following conditions. That the final coated driveway will not directly discharge into the resource area, nor cause any adverse impacts to the resource areas upon completion.
Perfect.
Makes sense. All right. Do I hear a second on that?
Second.
All right. All those in favor, starting with Jeff,
Aye.
Emily,
Aye.
Bill,
Aye.
and I'm an aye as well, Rebecca.
Great. All right. Thank you, William.
Thank you, guys. Have a good night.
Take care.
Right.
Are you ready for me to continue?
I'm just finishing something, but if you want to start on the next one, that would be fine.
I will slowly read.
Okay.
The Bolton Conservation Commission will now continue the request for a certificate of compliance under the provisions of Mass General Law, Chapter 131, Section 40, the Wetlands Protection and Riverfront Act, and under the Bolton Wetland Bylaw, Chapter 233, regarding the repair and replacement of a drain with a box culvert and repair to an island and sidewalks located at 460 Main Street.
I believe we do have an applicant and their representative present. First though, Jeff and I were out earlier today to conduct a site visit because the as-built plan that was submitted showed a discrepancy between the extent of the wetland resource areas and associated buffer under both the Wetlands Protection Act and local wetland bylaw from the 2009 original plan that was filed with the Conservation Commission and approved by the Conservation Commission under the order of conditions. So we just wanted to go out, view the site, see if there are any significant discrepancies. But it is really just that one discrepancy, which is relatively significant because that is the Commission's jurisdiction. And I don't know if Jeff would like to provide any thoughts.
I have to go with what Rebecca says, that it does seem to be I don't know, sort of an oversight on the drawings that were completed, and they should match up. It should be what it is, and if it's wrong on the drawings, then somebody can do something. It causes a problem down the line, and
Right.
and everything looks like it was done nicely, but just that line was just drawn in the wrong place, and if they ever want to do another gas pump in there or do anything else with it, it's going to cause all kinds of issues. So we might as well get it right, make sure that that's what we're looking at.
Yeah, and I will hand it back to Brian in a moment to open it to the applicant potentially. The property owner was present. We did explain to him what the question was and the fact that the commission seemed to be comfortable at the last meeting with everything else except for this difference between the 2009 resource area delineation and the present as-built delineation that was recently submitted. And the reasons why that's a concern with the commission being that it is the commission's jurisdiction. And I also relayed to them that the as-built, when it was submitted, I did notify their representative and just let them know that this may be something that comes up because it is a clear difference between the two plans. So they are now very aware of that, and I will hand it back to Brian in the event that he wants to open it to the applicant and the representative or provide more comments.
You read my mind. Yeah, if there is somebody here, the applicant or somebody representing them, 460 Main Street, if you have any updates or comments, we would love to hear them.
Hi, I'm Dave Kane, the owner. I met with Rebecca today and it was very educational. And I asked Alf Berry, the engineer, to get online with us, Alf Berry, who's here. And I understood that there was a 9-foot approximate discrepancy from the original plan. And I was just wondering if I could share my screen to show you exactly so we're all on the same page what we're talking about.
Please.
Unfortunately, we don't have a policy of doing that, but I do have the older plan. And then if you were referencing the new plan, just let me know. And I also have that as built that was submitted.
That's exactly what I was going to show.
Okay, the newer one?
Thank you, both.
Oh, both, okay.
So if you go back to the other plan, I'd like
Yeah.
Alf to comment on that as to how accurate it may or may not have been.
Okay.
Alf?
I am here. Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
All right, perfect. Let's see, let me, there it is. Okay, so my biggest issue with this particular plan is that it's not stamped by a professional. It's a design plan, not an as-built plan. It
Yep.
doesn't really represent reality on the ground. And so what I did, and Rebecca, you have the most recent version of what I did out there. That represents reality on the ground today. That original plan from 1997 presented to you by a petroleum company. There's no stamp on it. There's no, there's not a lot of information on that plan about who did it, who prepared it, who did the wetlands delineation, nothing. And so Mr. Kane has hired at great expense myself and a couple of other professional companies to go out here and do due diligence on this. And we're not trying to make something that's not reality. So but what you're referring to, we can't make reality, what's there today, match something that was just a design plan in some engineer's mind in Texas, for instance. We don't know where this plan came from. We just don't. Does that make sense to does that make sense to everyone?
Yep. Brian, would you like me to address that?
Sure.
Okay.
Please, yeah.
So although I appreciate that, and acknowledge that may have been the case, I don't know, that was prior to my time. The current issue that we have before us, or discrepancy, is there is a difference. This was an approved plan by the commission. In the past, I can't say what they've accepted or not regarding stamped or proof of where the plan came from. However, the new plan that you've submitted, I know the structures you've confirmed are present. You can see them there. There's no question at all where they lie on the property. And I appreciate that you included the information related to those structures as requested by the commission at the last meeting. So this is
Correct.
the only item that we're questioning, but rather needing clarification on, and I appreciate you doing that.
Okay,
Because
sure.
there is a discrepancy, this is now an as-built, which is required under the certificate of compliance, and as-built is not required under the notice of intent, although a lot of times the commission strongly encourages it. Again, I can't speak for what happened in the past, but this is what we have before us today. So the point of us
Right.
going out was, is there a large discrepancy or not? So the commission now has the ability to say, okay, we're comfortable with the new plan, or they have the ability to say, we really want someone, a third party, to go out and delineate that to make sure. And it's nothing to do with who did it, or how it was done, but it's typical that a third party is done when there is a discrepancy.
But you would still need a licensed professional to do that.
You would still need a wetland scientist and a licensed professional, correct? Yep.
Right.
And I hired Scott Goddard because I thought he was very well thought of by the board. So I maybe made a mistake. I don't know.
No, so the commission still has the ability, regardless of who does the delineation. And in this case, I don't know that it matters who did the delineation. What matters is the 2009 plan shows something different, no matter how slight, than the current plan that is before us as the as-built that was submitted. So any applicant in any project where there's a discrepancy or where the commission feels there may be a discrepancy in the field, the commission has the ability to request and require a third-party review. Now, I'm not saying that is what they are going to do, but I'm being transparent in stating that that is an option on the table. What I also would like to point out, and I'm curious about for the sake and related to this new plan, and it may not be an issue at all, is I was curious as to why it wasn't just focused on the project area. And at times the commission requests to see at least the parcel map and the parcel boundaries, but where the wetland is delineated on this as-built way beyond the borders of the property and the project area, there's a concern about that as well, because the commission hasn't reviewed that delineation. I know this came up because we found this outstanding item in the file because of another project that may occur. But right now, with what's before us this evening and wanting to close this out, that may be something to note as well. Or maybe that's just a revision of the plans to focus in on the project area. I don't know. But I'll hand it back over to you, Brian, but those were just the items that I was noting.
So I had a question, if it's possible.
Please. Yeah.
So I'm by far a wetlands expert, or
Yeah.
but as a layperson's look at the two plans, the old plan from 2009, if we could see that again, it just seems like the buffer line is just too straight for anything of reality to me. It just,
Right.
I can't see that the actual line would be straight like that. I mean, I guess it's possible, but it doesn't seem to make much sense as a non-wetlands person. I just don't know any wetlands that I've dealt with that are perfectly straight like that.
And to be clear, had this come before the commission during this time with this commission, with myself present, and this would have a vetting process in terms of going out with the wetland scientist, walking it with them, seeing how they delineated it. Okay, let's walk through it. That's what typically happens during the application process.
Yeah.
This was an after the fact notice of intent. So I don't know that it happened in that order. And maybe that's part of the reason why we have a plan that looks like this versus a plan that looks like the as-built that we've had before us. But that's not really the issue. The issue is the commission has before them a request for certificate of compliance, and they've received an as-built. Again, the structures and the work that was done seems to be appropriate and in compliance from what I've been hearing from past meetings. However, the delineation on site has changed. Whether or not one is accurate and one is not, that's up to the commission to decide and make that determination. If they feel it is not, they have the ability to review that and to confirm that. So that's all we're saying. We're not saying, oh, this line would never look like that. And I appreciate you're not either, you're just posing the question, but I would also be surprised at that. But at the same time, I have seen wetlands that are old farm channels and drainage channels, so you never know. But so, Ryan, if you would like to comment, or if the commission would like to comment.
It's a tough one, and I feel bad I was not able to make it to this site visit. What is the biggest discrepancy in question as
It's
far as what you're seeing on the as-built that leads you to question if the delineation is correct or not?
Sure.
Or, I mean,
so it is within the outer, and it is the outer portion of the 100-foot buffer, but the other issue is if the commission's confirming it on an as-built, that's how it stands, and that's including that wetland resource area. And that's why we want to make sure that it's accurate and correct. So here, it actually has a really good physical orientation point, which is the gas island. You have 1 and 2 pumps here. As you can see, it lands about in the middle, and that's your 100-foot wetland buffer. This is in the as-built. When you go back to the original plan, here's your gas island, pump 1, pump 2, your wetlands over here this time instead of the opposite side. And now it's in the middle of this pump, not in the middle of the island. So that's where my cursor is about where the as-built shows.
And you weren't able to determine in the field. I know you can't determine exactly in the field if.
I did not conduct a full delineation because I'm not a third-party reviewer. I also don't work for the applicant, so there's a fine line. I did look at within the wetlands where that line is, and I did do a few auger holes to just confirm that, and in that I didn't have a question with. Alf,
Brian, may I give you some history?
Please.
So this gas station was part of inheritance I got from my mom, who passed away in 2012. And when I got the property in 2016, I had no idea this even existed, this order outstanding. And we had been talking to your town planners, and they were encouraging development on that side of 495. We have another big parcel behind it. Yep. And, quite frankly, I've always thought the gas station was an embarrassment, an eyesore, and would like to see it cleaned up. So that sort of inspired me to see what could be done there. And because the lot was non-conforming, we added 2 acres to it that made it conforming in 3+ acres. So there could be an opportunity to actually clean up the gas station that's there, which down the road was my intent. And only through that process did I stumble upon this order that I had no idea existed. And Drake, who was the original tenant, is now owned by Global, who's now my tenant. They've been pretty vigilant about the maintenance records and everything that they submitted to Rebecca. So I think that on that front, you're good, right? I mean, they've been very good about taking care of the property, even though it's aesthetically not what I think everybody would like to see. But I hired Alf because Alf's done a lot of work for me, and he's very meticulous, and I'm a residential home builder. This is not my wheelhouse, but I'm learning, but I do have some wetland experience, and I trust Alf did the right thing. And I would like to close out the order and move forward with new orders. And the development potential is great, and I think it would be something good for the town and for me. And that's where we stand now, and that's why I'm here. So whatever needs to be done, we'll do, and hopefully we get through this.
There. Other comments from Conservation Commission members?
Hi, it's Jeff again. So based on my perception of the conversation that we just heard, that if you are planning on upgrading the development of this parcel of land, you'd think that it would be important to make sure that the delineations are correct on the as-built, as opposed, or at least they match up with either one or one or the other. But you'd think that you'd want to make them as accurate as possible. Rebecca, agreed?
I would agree, but as Alf stated, they being the applicant, is stating the original plan may have not been delineated in a manner that the as-built was delineated, and therefore would explain the discrepancy in the amount of space. But I do agree with you, does need to be delineated properly. And the fact that the rest of the property may be subject to further development, I agree. The commission should be very cognizant, though, of what they are approving in this as-built. And it may be resolved by, if the commission is comfortable with the discrepancy with the project area, so the project area being, I'm going back to the old plan just to zoom in here, that is the project area that was approved previously. If there is an as-built, inclusive of the discrepancy being approved by the commission, that is solely for the project area, I think that would be appropriate if the commission feels it has been delineated properly and there is that discrepancy from 2009 that it may not have been. However, I would caution the commission to approve the as-built as submitted, where it's inclusive without further review of the resource area, where it's inclusive of a significantly larger amount than certainly what we looked at today, being the project area. The request for certificate of compliance is only for the project area. It's not inclusive of the entirety of this resource area beyond it. So it would be concerning to me if the commission were to approve this plan as shown, not necessarily because of the discrepancy, although that is an item as well, but knowing that there may be future development. And that's nothing to say that this is inaccurate, but in order to ensure that this process that has already been relatively lengthy under a request for certificate of compliance is completed in a timely manner, you may want to zero in on the project area versus 3 parcels, which may be a future work area. But those are really my comments. The commission, like I said, has the ability to accept the as-built with that discrepancy from the 2009 plan. But if they do that, I would highly encourage them and caution them to have it be solely an as-built based on the project area, not on the 3 other contiguous parcels with an extended wetland resource area.
Is that something that we can just condition, or are we looking for an updated plan?
You would need an updated plan
Just
to make it
on the
clear.
project area.
Yep.
I mean, if we're zooming in on the project area, I'm comfortable. I mean, this was delineated by a wetland scientist, right? So
Who, can you clarify who this was delineated by? Was it
Goddard Consulting.
okay? And it was by Scott Goddard, a wetland scientist.
Yes.
Okay.
And just to be clear, the other parcels is not mine. It's not the gas station. It's a jointly owned sibling situation. So it's separate from this parcel. The only parcel in question is the one that has the, if you zoom out a little bit, you see, but the land outside of that boundary is not before anybody.
Right. So what I was talking about though is when the commission approves and issues a certificate of compliance with an as-built, the technicality of it is it's the as-built and the resource area shown on it.
So Rebecca, the property line that was removed when the 2.07 acres was added, you'd like that line put back and resubmitted?
Not necessarily. What I was stating and why I was flipping back and forth was, do you see how even though the commission would like to see the parcel line showing the extent of, or they typically like to see the parcel line, this is the area that was approved. So this is the area that should be shown on the plans, not beyond it.
Which is
Unless-
the original lot.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
That's the original lot.
This is the original lot?
Yes.
Yes. So
It's quite, Rebecca, it's, you know, there's site details up there, septic system. You have to look at the dash lines around that. That's the original lot. Where you have
Right.
your cursor right now, that's the original lot.
right, understood. So what I'm stating is, if that is the original lot and that is what has been improved, whether more acreage or not has been added to it, that is still the project area that is being approved by the commission. So if the lot lines have changed, that is fine, but we need to be focused in on the project area for the certificate of compliance for the work that was done in the associated resource area. That's all I'm saying.
And
Does that make
am I
sense?
correct that if it's developed, we'll be before you again anyway?
Mhm.
Correct, but if we approve an as-built with a resource area defined on it, that it leaves the commission subject to a discussion that the commission does not want to be subject to.
Which would be what?
Which would be if the commission for some reason was not comfortable with it. We haven't looked at those resource areas beyond the project area. So if the commission has not confirmed that wetland boundary and are now approving it in an as-built and then deny it in another, or would like to review it in another, it would be subject to an appeal.
We're looking for you to just zoom in on the original project area and create an as-built for that area. We are approving the wetland delineation for the project area only. We do not want to approve the delineation for the entire lot because nobody has been out there to verify it from our team. So
Okay.
this is all we're asking is that you take the CAD file, zoom in on the original project area, and then resubmit that as built. And that's what we will approve. And if you come before us for a future project, we will review the wetland delineation for the entire lot in the field.
That's fine.
Right.
That makes sense. Because the other option is a third-party review. You know, if you did want us to approve that other as-built and check the delineation, we'd probably look for a third party to kind of do the whole thing before we approved it. Which maybe you want, maybe you don't. But again, I'm with Emily too. If we can just shrink it down to the project size, so we can just approve it.
You know,
that's done.
I'm in no rush to do anything, Brian, with this as far as developing.
Right.
I just, if it makes sense to, you know, postpone it and have the whole thing done. I mean, I spent a tremendous amount of money getting it done. So it seems like it's wasted money if I don't use it. I mean, eventually we'll revisit it, I know, but it makes sense to me that it's looked at. If it's been bought and paid for, why not make sure it's right?
Yeah.
So the other thing that you can do, which I believe you've already started that process, but this halted that process, was to file an ANRAD, which is an abbreviated notice of resource area delineation, again, separate from the request for certificate of compliance.
Right.
Once that is off the table and cleared up, you can continue with the other, which is doing exactly that and requesting to the commission, we want you to look at the whole resource area on this lot, or the resource areas that you name, in this case, bordering vegetated wetland. There's
So
a
you
perennial
can
stream.
do that then.
Yes,
So this is sort of like a cloud in the title, if you will.
yes.
I get you. All right, so we'll zoom in on the plan and try and close out the old order that's, you know.
Dave and Commissioner, may I make a comment from a professional here, because I show two different quote parcels, as you call them, and I have to refer back to a legal document called a deed. And, you know, the 3.02 acres is listed in a deed. I can show that original lot line, you know, as something that's your quote project area. That's not a problem. I can do that. I just want to make sure that I understand exactly what you're thinking here.
So to clarify again, and maybe I'm not being correct. So, and I wish I had an example. It is typical that for sort of like a locus and orientation purpose. Can you see my cursor?
Yes.
I can, yep.
So typically in the corner of the plan away from the project area, you show the size of the parcel, so the 3 acres you're referring to, without any detail in the middle aside from boxes for structures. Then the area, and again, I'm using the 2009 plan solely for showing project area. I understand we've already discussed back and forth about that. Then showing closer up the project area. So you're not stating that it's an old parcel. If you want to delineate that by showing a limit of work or a specific detail that shows the extent of the project area, fine. But the 100-foot buffer, the 25, the 75, those should not continue through. Those should be focused on the project area that is being requested to issue a certificate of compliance for. And that is what we are looking for. You can still show the extent of the parcel for orientation purposes and proof that yes, it's 3 acres now.
So I just simply need to trim some lines out. Is that what I'm hearing?
That is what it sounds like, because what, and again, this is subject to the commission giving you this answer. The commission, or one of the commission members, had just stated that they are willing to look at and potentially approve an as-built that shows this. So the work area. Does that make sense?
Okay.
So
Basically,
I have a question
zooming
too.
in.
Okay, go ahead. Sorry.
No, I was just saying you're just, because if I'm understanding, we're approving an as-built, right?
Correct.
An original request for work. We're just asking you to zoom in on the work area that was submitted on the original plan, and so we can approve the as-built. And then the survey that was done previously is not a waste. It can be resubmitted, right, Rebecca? As an
and
ANRAD?
actually it's pending still currently as an ANRAD, so it's not a waste.
For the entire property.
Yep.
So this gets.
So why don't we just zoom in on it and resubmit it?
That's doable.
Or you could just say submitted based on the boundaries of the original lot line and not excluding outside of that. I mean, I don't know how. It seems like with a statement you could say conditioned on the original submittal boundary only.
The original project area. Does that sound right?
Are you asking the commission?
I was just saying, it does to me. I mean, I think that is something that we could approve, and I think that would be the easiest way to do this. If you're able to submit something just based on the original project area, and even reference that you know, we can reference that the lot has changed, but this as-built references the original approved project.
Okay, that sounds good.
Great. Okay. So approval is granted within the 4 corners of the original project area only.
Well, that's what the commission would need to vote on if.
I'm just saying, yeah.
But, and Brian, to clarify, is that with a revised plan showing just solely the project area from the original plan, or are you saying just referencing it on the current as-built?
No, I would say a new one, not referencing it on the current, because again, the current kind of has some things that we probably wouldn't want to approve necessarily.
Okay.
You're just taking the view screen on the AutoCAD drawing and just zooming in on that, honing in on that and reprinting it. And then the file's still there.
Mhm.
zoom back out and resubmit it with the ANRAD application
Sounds perfect.
for overall approval of the entire property.
Sounds perfect. Thank you, Emily.
Okay.
Alf, you got that?
I did. Thank you, Dave.
All right, does that seem to make sense? And I'll ask the other commission members too. Is everybody comfortable with that?
Well, it's Jeff. I certainly am.
Yes, Brian, this is Bill. I'm comfortable with that also.
Okay. In that case, do we need to continue or anything officially, or can we just leave it as take no action and put them on the schedule for next time?
Yep, the
Okay.
letter.
I think what we will do.
Great. So if you could submit that new plan by noon on the 12th, that would mean that the commission would be able to consider it and based on their discussion this evening, hopefully approve it.
Okay. Would you like electronic or paper copies brought to you?
It's, in order to complete the submittal, we do need a hard copy as well, but we are requiring electronic copies.
Needs to be stamped as well, right?
Correct. Yes.
All right, Alf, I think you can do that tomorrow, right?
Oh, yeah, of course.
Perfect.
Yeah.
All right, thank
I
you for
have,
meeting
I
me
have
today.
nothing on my plate.
Never. All right. Thank you.
Thank you. Good
Yeah,
night.
thank you.
Bye now.
Bye.
Take care. All right. Are you ready for Nashaway?
I am, and actually, Brian, if we
Yep.
want to table that until the next meeting, if possible, because I was unable to get a hold of the property owner.
We sure can. In which case, do you want to move on to the enforcement order for 258 Hudson?
Yes, and I believe Seth is present, unless I'm mistaken, to provide an update. Seth?
I'm here. Let my
Okay.
internet catch up. I'm sorry.
No problem.
Okay, good evening, commissioners.
Good evening.
So after our last meeting, Rebecca and I met out there, and Rebecca, if you'd like, I can fill everybody in on what's transpired, or if you'd prefer.
That
to
would be great. You can take the reins on that.
So we met on the morning of October 21st. There were basically 5 action items that were agreed to be completed to lift the cease and desist. There was some sediment on the road, replacement of a wattle near the basin outfall for basin 2, additional wattles on a slope between the road and basin number 3, some cleaning of the silt fence in that area, and removal of a errant concrete lid on the site. So those 5 items were completed on October 22nd. And then we also sent over a plan for drainage improvements on the upland area of lots 1 through 4 on the 23rd. And construction on that improvement has also begun. I believe today it started. So those were the items that have gone on since we last spoke. If you guys have any questions on anything, I'm happy to address them.
Not from what you've said so far, no, not offhand.
So basically, after we conducted the site visit, they finalized those items. And as Seth said, they also have since submitted, even though it wasn't a requirement, because we discussed on site that they were submitting to planning board and they would also be submitting to the Conservation Commission at the same time, which they have since done. And therefore the commission, I authorized the release of, I conducted the release of the cease and desist upon the authorization of the commission at the last meeting. So as long as everything stays in compliance, we shouldn't have issues. One thing they also did was they did plant the seedlings along the access road, which went through the open space. This was during construction. They were using it as a access to lot 18, I believe. And that has since been closed off with vegetation. So we appreciate that as well. even though that wasn't an item technically of the cease and desist. And they being the developer, who actually, I believe, Bob, I apologize, I didn't see you before. You were on the call as well. They have contracted Seth and or Dush Armadillos, or on behalf of Dush Armadillos, to be inspecting the erosion controls per the order of conditions in appropriate manner to ensure that there's no longer a need for a cease and desist.
Excellent.
Just for the record, I'm on the phone. I just don't know how to get it okay to have my audio. I'm sorry, my video.
That's okay. Thank you, Bob.
Okay.
I just went down the list and saw your name, so
Yeah.
I just wanted to make sure that if
No, okay.
Yeah.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Yep. No problem.
We appreciate the update. Do any commission members have any questions? And Rebecca, any final thoughts? I mean, you think between you and Seth summed it up pretty well?
Yep. We were just, part of the release was that they would come and provide the update after submitting the information for what they had completed. So this was sort of the last step.
And I knew we put it up as a vote, but we don't technically have to vote on it. We did vote on it last time, correct? And they've been released?
Yep.
All right. Well,
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you guys.
Thank you so much.
We'll see you.
Okay.
All right.
We did last meeting, even though we discussed the activities and locations where the activities will take place regarding Tom Denny Nature Camp. We did discuss last meeting that we would like to vote just to memorialize that these are the accepted locations and these are the accepted activities.
All right. We would, if I do a roll call vote, that we approve the, I'm just trying to think of what to exactly call this. The
activities for 2021 Tom Denny Nature Camp season or something.
All right.
Hours.
All right. So, did you have any concerns with it as submitted, Rebecca? It seems to follow everything we discussed, just kind of been written down, memorialized.
Yep, I would also just memorialize that they should work with the Conservation Commission to conduct their conservation project on the property, which they typically do, but this year may be a little bit more involved if the current executive order is relieved in any way by next summer.
Amount of luck. Okay. In that case, I think I'd like to make a motion that we approve the plan for 2020 Tom Denny Nature Camp activities as drafted and submitted at this evening's meeting, with the following condition, that if possible, that the nature camp does try to coordinate with the Conservation Commission when it comes to determining their conservation project / learning activity during this specific camp year. Does that generally cover what I'm trying to say, Rebecca?
You got it.
You're the best. All right, in that case, we'll take a roll call vote. Who agrees that we should accept the activities plan as drafted and submitted? And I will start with Jeff Bryant.
I do.
All right, Emily Winter.
Yes.
William Payne.
Aye.
And I'm an aye as well, Rebecca.
Okay, so now, and I have to apologize as we ran over, we have Elizabeth Melanson, if I said that properly, who had reached out to me with a, hi, did I say your name right? Okay, perfect.
Thank you.
She had reached out to me regarding horse-friendly crossings and issues specific to, it was brought up because of our many trails in town, but also different bridges being constructed. And it's something that the Trails Committee has discussed previously as well, in terms of how we can adapt to a wider group of users that are known to be on the properties. For instance, I know Bun Hills is fairly used, Bowers is used fairly regularly, along with a few other properties that are known areas that horseback riders carry out their activities. And so Elizabeth was willing to and wanting to come to the commission to just provide some insight and information on constructing bridges that aren't actually significantly different to what we're already constructing, but just accommodating for the horse traffic as well. So Elizabeth, I don't know if this is the document you want me to have up. So just if you would prompt me or provide the summary, if this is supplemental information, that would be great.
Okay, great. So thank you. And I'm so happy to have this opportunity to come talk to you. My name is Liz Melanson. I'm a resident of Bolton. I live at 170 Annie Moore. And tonight I've asked Becky Gallagher, who's the president of the Bay State Trail Riders Association, to join me. The Bay State Trail Riders is a nonprofit organization who works on keeping trails open for equestrian use, but also advocate for multi-use of those trails for things like hiking, mountain biking, snowmobiling, as well as horseback riding. And I've also asked Bob Hatch to join us. Bob is a member of the Hubbardston Open Space Committee, and both Bob and Becky have done this presentation to different conservation commissions across the state of Massachusetts. And I think Becky had told me she's also reached into New Hampshire as well on this particular topic. And so the purpose of tonight's conversation was really twofold. So one is we have multiple bridges across our conservation trails within the town of Bolton. And there's two issues with them that I've seen in my riding experience. One is a lot of them are not built to support the weight of a horse. So for example, that an average horse, they can run anywhere from 900 to 2,000 pounds, with the average being about 1,200 pounds. So I think if you think about some of the bridges, at least that I'm familiar with, the one up on Annie Moore in that conservation land, as well as the one off of East Rattlesnake that's off 117, those bridges do not support an average horse's weight. So I think we just have one item to consider there. And then the second thing is, for even those that do support the weight, sometimes the footing on them, when it's wet or there's leaves on them, can be slippery for both horses and for walkers. And so my ask to the commission is twofold. One is, is there an opportunity for us to take a look at the bridges that we have within the Conservation Commission, or within the purview of the Conservation Commission, to look and say, first of all, would they support, are they appropriate for horses and for human loads? What's safe, what's not safe? And then secondly, take a look and say, what is the soundness of the surface of those bridges? And are they also safe? If they'll support the weight of a horse, is the footing safe for the horse and for humans? So I'd just like to stop and see if there's anything. I know that was a lot, and probably not being horse people, just want to take a minute to see if you have any questions about what I've talked about, or if Becky or Bob wanted to jump in, if that's appropriate, in terms of any of their learnings from other presentations.
So
I could comment a little bit here. Since I didn't hear any other comments. I'm chair of the Open Space Committee in Hubbardston. I was also a Bolton resident, horse user, hiker, etc. In Bolton for 40 years. The aspects of bridges is a pretty serious thing. I became much more involved with it in in Hubbardston as I became chair of the Open Space Committee here. And the bridges were adequate to sustain weight of a horse, but we had a lot of complaints about utilization of those bridges to navigate the trail systems in our town, my new town. But they were from humans, not equestrians. The pressure treated bridges, which is the predominant type of structure that I see in trails, become extremely slippery. There's an algae film that develops on them, and how we started investigating to mitigate the slipperiness of those surfaces was just from walkers, not equestrians. And the for walkers, there's potential danger or risk of injury from just slipping and falling on it. For equestrians, as you can see in a couple of these slides that are popping up, it can be lethal or near lethal, and there have been a number of accidents that fall into that category. And we've had, Becky and I both have had comments. We have come up with solutions to mitigate the slipperiness of them. And we've installed those in a number of locations in Hubbardston, Petersham, in other towns from here all the way down to the southern parts of the state where Becky's from. But being familiar with Bolton from being there as both a walker and an equestrian, and what I see in the trail system now, my first recommendation to Liz was to do an inventory of bridges and to assess which ones are, first of all, amenable to sustain what kind of utilization, and then to assess what the surfaces are like for walkers and or equestrians. So there needs to be an assessment. From my perspective, from what I hear from Liz, as well as my knowledge of Bolton, is just to do an assessment of the structures in town. As it relates to the Conservation Commission, I think there's a similar relationship. I don't know if you guys folks have an open space committee. The way it works in Hubbardston is the Conservation Commission has the ultimate responsibility for the trails and or structures within the trails, but they delegate day-to-day responsibility for maintenance, improvements, et cetera, for those to the Open Space Committee. A little bit of background on potential liability and why it's for Bolton to consider this relatively seriously. There's state laws that alleviate liability for trail systems to alleviate the lawsuits, et cetera. But that's recently been changed, that it does not include structures that are implemented but aren't designed properly. So if there are structures that are put out there, the town could potentially be in a liable condition if somebody gets hurt on those. So that was my recommendation to Liz, to say, okay, the first thing that needs to be done is this: do an assessment and a report back to the Conservation Commission, who are probably responsible for the trails and or structures, bridges that are implemented on those trails. So I don't know, that's, I'll stop there. That's a little bit of background from my perspective.
Thank you, Bob. And so I guess that's the ask, is a consideration of, as either we build bridges that we consider the load bearing weight of the horse, and then, as Bob indicated, the footing for both horses and people, that we do an assessment, if possible, of what we have today for those bridges. And then I think the biggest ask is maybe make sure that we update the trail guides to know if we do have bridges that would not support horse free or could be slippery, that we update the maps and indicate that, just so that as we are out using those trails and come across one that we would say it would not be good feeling or that it could be slippery, just to help as we ride the horses through the great trails that we do have. So that would be the ask. Sure.
No, I appreciate everything you've actually presented to us this evening. I was going to say, it strikes me as this is something we can do with the Trails Committee, and I hate to ask the Trails Committee to do too much, but it seems like you had the right first step to kind of get us a survey of how many bridges do we have, where are these bridges, and then for them to start breaking down, which of the equestrian properties, which are the most well-used bridges. Because I can see as we replace bridges over time, we need to do repair work. It would seem like that's the perfect time to start transitioning to non-slip surfaces or better surfaces if possible, if they're out there and we can afford them, hopefully. It would seem like a logical step, but again, I hate to put anything on the Trail Committee, but it seems like this is something they would relish, at least getting the good survey done of what they have and what's functioning right now.
Well, we certainly can get that on the agenda. They meet on the first Monday of the month.
Yep.
And for sure, we can get that on the agenda to start the discussion about it. It's not a problem.
I'd also offer my services, if there's anything I can do to help them, or, I hate to volunteer get them involved, but, again, if there is questions or any of this detail that Bob that he provided in terms of some of the potential solutions for the slipperiness, it's pretty cost effective. It's been proven in other places. And again, I'd be glad to offer these services as well. So if that would be of any benefit to them.
Thank you. I also have a quick question, sort of going back to the organizations that you are representing this evening, or sort of reflecting on that. Are these bridges something that you are encouraging, or something that you would potentially fund or provide volunteers and donations of material to improve the existing infrastructure, or to add new infrastructure if there is a crossing necessary? Is that something that the Bay State Trail Riders typically does, or is this, which there's no wrong answer, but I'm just trying to get a more thorough understanding of this. Is this something that you offer your services to assist in the assessment process and sort of talk it out in terms of what we would be looking at to put different places if we do want to label a specific crossing for a horse safe crossing area? That may be the wrong terminology. And be able to, like you said, update in our trail guide so that it is stating a horse can safely cross here, where currently we don't have anything labeled that way because frankly, I don't think we're sure of that, as you've clearly already stated and realized. But we don't explicitly label areas, or we don't explicitly encourage or discourage unless it's restricted in terms of whether it be mountain biking, horse riding, hiking, walking, running. Unless it's explicitly restricted, we don't typically name it. But in the event that we do have a specific crossing or specific infrastructure used, I could see, yes, we would then highlight it. But is that something that you provide funding for and resources for? Is it more the resource of you as the individual, which may be an excellent resource to assist in that process?
I'll let Becky address. I have a couple comments that I'd follow up on relative to the general scenario here, but I'll let Becky address the funding aspect of it. And I'll precede that with the Bay State Trail Riders is an equestrian organization. So most likely she would comment that there's potential funding as it relates to trails or bridges that would be amenable to equestrian use. If it's not something amenable to equestrian use, then my guess is there's not likely to be any opportunity for funding from there. But I'll let Becky take over.
That makes sense.
Bob hit that right on the nail, because one of our missions is to make sure that it's assuring equestrian access to trails. What we have done in the past, which actually brings me to a question that I had for you guys anyways, was the fact one of those bridges that Elizabeth was talking about was built by a Boy Scout for his Eagle Scout project. We have worked with quite a few Eagle Scout projects, and they have submitted the bridge plans to us where they built the bridges and we paid for the materials. But we were the oversight on the bridge plans, and like one of them, they made sure they had Koopmans drew up the plans for them to make sure it would support horseback riders. So my question to you guys was, I don't know who has oversight for those type of projects, but I think that needs to be kept in mind down the road of the use that is allowed on those trails, and to make sure that whatever plans that they are submitting actually supports all those uses.
I would agree. And this is something that actually came up previously. So it has been discussed in general with the local Bolton Trails Committee. And we did state that any new bridges we would look to construct in that manner, or in a manner that's supportive of equestrian use, and accounting for those slick situations that we have seen and observed occurring as well. Regarding the Eagle Scout comment, typically it depends on who owns the property. So for instance, it would be the Conservation Commission if it's on a Conservation Commission town-owned parcel. It would be the Bolton Conservation Trust if it is on a trust parcel. At times, if they're doing a project that is on adjacent abutting parcels that the project is in both places, sometimes one or the other will supervise on both, or coordinate on both, or oversee on both. But we also very much encourage Eagle Scout projects or Girl Scout projects to be conducted and to assist with our trails. Even the local high school, we've had some honor students reach out to us and get their hours in. We had 2 college interns over the summer. So we certainly are big on bringing in the community and making sure that they're aware of not only what their great idea is to contribute to the property, but the other items that we're trying to progress upon and improve upon in the area as well. So the short answer to that is yes, we absolutely coordinate with Eagle Scouts. And if it were a little bit more technical, such as this, where we needed some outside insight, we would reach out to other professionals or people experienced in that field like yourself.
On a long-term basis about funding, that could be on a case-by-case situation. I know we got started up in Hubbardston with Bob, who's also a member of Bay State, and actually hosting a ride, and then some of the monies that we raised went to help fund some of the work that they did on the bridges and stuff like that.
Nice.
So I don't know if a partnership like that could happen down the road, what there is for a trail system, for parking and stuff like that.
I was actually, when you're talking about trail riding, of course, I always think of trailers if you're not from town. And realistically, we only have one property that may accommodate 1 or 2 if the parking lot's empty, which is quite rare, to be honest. But in terms of local trails or being able to ride a horse from a nearby property that may have more space for that type of access may be possible. But the other contingency with conservation properties is the commission has a practice, and I would need to check and make sure, depending on the property, that it doesn't restrict profit. Because if it's going back into the land, there's no issue with that. But if there is a profit or it's not conservation focused, it hasn't been a practice to allow for that use. But again, that's something that the commission would need to weigh in on more formally. We may need to go talk with the Board of Selectmen as well, or at least discuss it with some further counsel. But that is definitely something that I think is worth the conversation.
Becky, is there anything available from the State Trails Commission? I think we talked about that with the Department of Police and Recreation about, do they have any funding for trail improvement that maybe the Conservation Commission could tap into as well?
Actually, I can jump in on that right now. The Department of Conservation and Recreation just sent out an announcement for the 2021 RTP grant round is open now. And that is specifically can be used for trail improvements.
Yep, and you get more points for multi-use trails.
Correct.
Exactly.
And more points for if you have partnerships.
Yes, that as well.
So that might be a very opportune thing to jump in on right now.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, I think those applications are due in February. That is definitely something that we'd have to talk to the commission with. We're all here this evening, but more formally, and put it on the agenda as a vote, and format it a little bit differently to keep that formal process. But in terms of the partnership or applying for a grant together, which I think is appropriate, but because it's due in February, I think we have some time to assess at least one or two properties and the crossings that are there. But overall, I think being the staff of the Conservation Commission, working for the Conservation Commission, I think this is really good information, because as I stated, we already started talking about this sort of infrastructure. So it's beneficial to have it very concise and broken down to say, these are the issues, this is the infrastructure you can implement that helps or resolves the issue. And then it also assists in providing the detail to say, we need to do the assessment. If we find areas that need to be improved, here's what we're looking to do, pick. So I think this has been very beneficial, and I appreciate you waiting this evening and presenting to the commission and sharing this with us, and also putting out the idea of potential partnerships and further opportunities, whether it be for resources or to help assess the properties as well, because we do have an excellent group of very dedicated volunteers of our Trails Committee. And in addition to that, it's myself, some trust members, some commission members, but we don't have a large conservation staff that's formal. So it is beneficial to get a little bit more expertise in a multi-use trail like this, or multi-use trail infrastructure. So I appreciate it.
I'll finish this. I said that I'd comment after some of these discussions have taken place, which they have. After the assessment is completed, and that's something that's up to the Bolton folks, I'd be willing to support that if that was something of interest. Because I know most of these places. I've spent many hundreds of hours at Bower Springs and many of the trails up there. Mm-hmm. Once your inventory is done, and again, the surfaces are important for any kind of users. So the likelihood of fixing many of them for equestrian use is probably very small, and I would understand that and even support that. However, to make them much more user friendly for everybody, what we have come up with for making the bridges not slippery, and these bridges get lethal just for walkers, is really affordable. You can do a substantial bridge for less than $100 and make it an extremely viable bridge for walkers to go over without any risk of falling. So, and there's something that could be implemented by scouts or any volunteers. It's a simple process, economical, aesthetically friendly, and environmentally friendly. So
I appreciate that.
So thank you again. I really appreciate the time and just the attention and again, whatever we can do to help. So thank you so much.
Thank you. We'll be in touch, I'm sure.
Yeah, no, thank you for sharing your time with all of us. No, we do appreciate you coming out and you waiting. It's really fascinating information.
Thank you. Have a great night.
Thank you.
All right.
Did people have a chance to read through our minutes?
I did not.
Would people prefer that we approve these minutes at our next meeting? Give you a chance to read through them, or would you want to read through them now? I skimmed them quickly. I did not read them as quickly as closely as I normally would like to. So if we can hold off on meeting on approving those minutes, I would not be opposed to that either.
Second.
All right.
Table.
Rebecca, any updates on the land steward position? And then also if you could give us an update on the MVP program.
Sure. Applications are still welcome for our volunteer land steward position. And to help bridge the gap and help coordinate exactly what we were just talking about. I do attend the Trails Committee meetings, but it would be beneficial if someone could act as that individual as well. For the Municipal Vulnerability Preparedness Program Action Plan updates, we recently had our core team meeting on Tuesday, and today we had our agricultural stakeholder meeting, which, because of the metaphors, it's the Apple Country Project, and to be short about it. So it's interesting that we have a core team and sort of a seed team. So that's been an ongoing conversation piece as well. What we are looking for is if you can think of you being the commission or other individuals who may be watching at home, we are looking for individuals who have an interest in soil health related to agriculture and turf and varying practices related to the two, whether it's in your own backyard that you're practicing, or if you're doing it on a larger scale for a landscaping company you may own, or for a farm that you may own or manage. So we're just looking for contacts at this time to sort of expand upon that seed stakeholder group. And the website should be up and running within the next couple of weeks. They're just finalizing, they being our consultants, are just finalizing some of the last minute updates, but there will be a data viewer so the public can go in and explore that information, similar to the MVP planning grant. And then can I provide the conservation property updates as well? Do you mind?
Nothing would make me happier if you were.
Okay, great. For the conservation area updates, we do have, we did some work and put some more loam tailings down, and we completed the majority of edging with down logs around the pond. We did put up some signage at the kiosk, as we previously discussed prior to the work being done, to just relay the information to individuals that we want them to walk within the boundaries of the down logs on top of the loam tailings. We want to reduce the traffic towards the edge of the pond, which is therefore outside of that edging. And the thought is, if the kiosk information is not enough, we will also be placing the same signage at the trail extensions that lead into Harvard and then over towards Vaughan Hills, just to ensure that we're getting people that may come in from other trailheads. The other item is we did get a volunteer through the Terra Corps program through Sudbury Valley Trustees. So he will be working to also be improving our invasive species management program. So there will be some videos, there will be a couple site walks and work days associated with that, but also best management practices. So keep an eye out for that. That will also be a webpage on the Conservation Commission town page as well as its own persistent link on the left-hand panel, like you saw with some of our other projects. And lastly, which is relatively new, after speaking with the Board of Health representative or staff of the Board of Health, part of the governor's COVID-19 order number 55, which was issued November 2nd, 2020, regarding masks and face coverings. This is I'm just going to read it and then I'll summarize. Effective November 6th at 12:01 a.m. The order has been revised, requiring all persons to wear face coverings in all public places, even where they are able to remain 6 feet of distance from others. Allows for an exemption for residents who cannot wear a face covering due to a medical or disability condition, but allows employers to require employees to provide proof of such a condition. Allows schools to require students participating in in-person learning provide proof of such a medical or disabling condition. So that is the entirety of the mask and face covering section, but I do want to focus on the fact that it's no longer relevant in terms of whether or not to wear a mask on conservation property. Even if you can stay 6 feet away, it is a public place. Therefore, under this order, you are required to wear a mask, even if you are distanced from other individuals. And I just wanted to share that. We already have information on the trailheads that express this information, since even though it was just an advisory at that point, to an extent where you could be more than 6 feet away at each of the trailheads. So that signage is still there, it's still relevant. If it becomes more restrictive, that signage will be updated to just be there and remind individuals that we need to take precautions, even though this is the place that most people are seeking refuge from stress or other concerns. And there was one other thing, I forget what I was going to say. I apologize. Oh, to my understanding, the Board of Health is the town entity that would be in charge or the authority on this matter. But if that's something I still need to discuss and clarify. So to my understanding, I'm not going to be out policing that. However, if that is my responsibility, I'll have to discuss that with the commission and the town administrator if that is the case. But at this time, my understanding is that is not the case, but we do need to make the public aware that conservation properties, even though you're outdoors, it is a public space, it's a public place. You're required to wear a face covering at all times. So.
Thank you. Yeah, for reiterating. And again, this was the governor's order, so we are just following through with that.
Yep.
Is there any other new business?
We actually do have one item to address, and I wish I wrote it up a little bit more formally so I could have something more concise to say, but I would like to extend a thank you to not only our commission president, but also one of our commission members has resigned. They are well and healthy, so there are no concerns with that. But I would like to extend a great thank you to Kip McNamara for not only sticking with us for so long, but providing valuable insights for the commission. I know it's a big time commitment, especially on nights like this, where we're a little bit over our agenda times, but it also provides a valuable resource to not only myself as the staff, but the town as a whole. This board is who looks after the open spaces. As you heard this evening, other people have open space committees. We have our awesome volunteer group, Bolton Trails Committee, and we have the Conservation Commission directing those efforts from a distance to an extent. In addition to that, just protecting our wetland resource areas. And I just, again, want to extend that thank you, not only for his time, but his efforts on the commission.
I will second that as well. Kip was a huge help and a great personality, and he will be missed, but I do appreciate all that he did, and I hope the town does as well.
Yes.
Agree.
And that was my last update.
Anything else we need to discuss this evening?
I don't believe so, unless I'm forgetting something.
Yeah, right. All right. Hearing nothing, I'd like to make a motion that we officially adjourn the Wednesday, November 4th, 2020 meeting of the Bolton Conservation Commission. Do I hear a second on that?
Second.
All right. All in favor, starting with Jeff Bryant.
Aye.
Emily Winter.
Aye.
William Payne.
Aye.
And I am an aye as well, Rebecca. That we are hereby adjourned. Thank you all, and thank you, Rebecca, and we'll see you in a couple weeks. Not before.
Yes.
Good night,
Thank you
all.
so much. Have a good evening.
Good night.